What's up, everybody? And we are live at the show. Welcome to VodPod Media. I am your host, Maximo. As always, I use pronouns he, him, his, and I'm so excited to be here tonight because we have two of the livest, the rylest ones from Bed-Stuyvesant in San Antonio. Here we are, what up? Two OGs, originals. I got my man Amzi. What's up, man?
Yo, what up?
Yo, from the San Pluto Show. Make sure you check them out every Tuesday night here, 8:30 Central.
Please do.
At VodPod Media. Big shout out to Gylan Jackson, Rudy, Jaden, Ileana, everyone that came through to support the show tonight. Listen, if you out here working towards something, whatever it is, make sure that you're going hard and make sure that you're staying consistent. That's the only real advice I'm going to give until we get specific.
Quote of the day right there.
What's the quote? Give me another quote.
That was the quote of the day right there.
Quote of the day, go hard and be consistent. You got to get it in. And we know somebody else. We got to have our main guest here tonight,
yes.
Keli Rosa. Keli, what's up, girl? How you doing?
I'm trying to relax after a really busy season. So
You've been all over the place, girl. We done seen you at festivals. We done seen you all over. I mean, you did two on Saturday, Sunday, right? You do doubles. I mean, all these things. Where do you get all this energy from?
I think it's because I don't have kids, man.
Do you want kids?
No.
That's all right.
The community is, there's a lot of students.
The community are those seeds.
Kids and, yeah, man, I'm just trying to help, grow the forest.
Well, hey, much love to you, Keli. Thank you so much for being here. We had to bring you on. You've been on the show a couple times as like cameo. You got in somehow.
Bombarding other people's sets all, hey.
But you look great tonight. Who did your makeup?
I do.
She does her own makeup too, everyone. Come on now. Give us some finger snaps, hand claps. Make sure if you're watching this show, you give us a like, comment, share.
Please.
Someone earlier told me like, hey, what are you doing with this show? It's like, all right, just watch. So if you're curious on where we're going with the show, make sure you're watching, make sure you're supporting.
Yes.
If you're hating, at least give us a like in some form or a love, a hand pound symbol or something.
Send money.
Because we're going to keep going. Find us on Twitch, Twitter, wherever you find your podcasts. But Keli, we got to give you a big major shout out for being out there, being community, being love. And for those folks who don't know you just yet, for whomever they may be, if they've been living under a rock, tell our audience who you are, introduce yourself for the good of the order.
So my full name is Keli Rosa Kaunok Romero, and I grew up in Southern California, but I definitely have roots in Texas. I think border crossing families. My mom had 15 brothers and sisters. It's like old school Mexican. Half of them were born in Texas. My dad picked grapes. Now he's retired, but he used to pick grapes in Delano with, the Manongs and the Filipinos. So I just always grew up like really, I guess, aware, right? Like I think we call it woke now, right? We didn't eat grapes for a long time. Anytime there was like a boycott or in California, Prop 187 was really big when I was growing up. Big, right? So my parents would turn out for that. They voted. So I grew up doing that. And then I wanted to play music, but muchachas mexicanas no tocan música, right? Like good little Mexican girls don't play music. They dance. And to be honest, man, I liked it and I was good at it. I grew up listening to like music. My dad, he would do like the farm worker pipeline or like Underground Railroad, pick in California, and then the season changes and you come into Texas. Melons, cotton, the season changes, you go up Idaho, potatoes, Minnesota, asparagus, and then down into like Washington, apples, and you just this thing, right? And so my dad had a great record collection. And he loved Tejano, conjunto, country, which is weird for like a Filipino Hawaiian, but not really, because in the fields, like once the union started, right, one of the big things that Larry Itlong, the leader of the Filipinos, and of course Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, that they share spaces like kitchens, union halls, even the quarters, the living quarters. So my dad, he was raised by Filipinos and Mexicans. And then my mom is Mexican. So of course, I think we tend to always lean more towards our mother's cultura. I don't know, maybe not. But I grew up, really immersed in cultura. My dad, first record he gave me was a Texas Tornadoes record. Like when I was little, you know how you don't realize that like people age. So when you're like 5 or 6, you're like, I'm gonna marry so-and-so who's like a whole adult. Mine was Flaco Jimenez.
Wow.
Like saw him on a record cover. He had that like greaser pump and like the pearl snaps, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Then I met him and I was like, oh my gosh.
Does Flacco live here?
Yeah.
I met him.
Yeah.
I met him. I shot something for him at his house. He still
Damn.
He has a studio. Yeah, I went to his house, and it was with Natasha from North End 210. She asked us to come out and capture her interview with him. Yeah. And went to his studio. He showed me all his wars, his picture with Obama and all this stuff like that.
Him and his brother, like or even his father, right? Don Santiago, man, talk about like cultural legends.
OGs.
Conjunto started because of people like him, right? So I grew up with all of that. And then, you know, the dancing. And now I'm like, oh God, thank God I stuck with it. Like, thanks, jefes, because, you know, in New York, I paid the bills like that. I've toured internationally as a folklorico dancer. Like, I paid the bills that way. You know, after school programming's great for artists.
Yeah.
And so but then a cultural arts center opened. And I was really involved, and they got a couple jaranas. And my parents were like, well, at least she's doing that and not in gangs. 'Cause I grew up in Orange County during like the worst gang period ever, right? The 90s. And I grew up in like one of the poorest like similar to 78207 here, right? The West Side. And I laugh because I'm like, dude, a barrio Nazlan is a barrio. They might look a little different. We all might talk a little different, but we're all experiencing the same, you know, institutional injustices and racism and the whole, you know, school to prison pipeline, whether it's Southern California, Nuevo Mexico, Arizona, here in Texas, right? Like wherever that is, we're all facing the same literal injustices. So I grew up knowing that and very involved. I was an only child.
Really?
Yeah, it's rare. I know. You know what I think happened? Like, I can't even imagine what my mom went through growing up with that many brothers and sisters.
How many does she have?
15, man.
Damn.
And I think like my grandma went through like 20 live births, but 15. I know. So I think my parents were like, ya, con uno, with one. Like,
yeah, one's enough.
And also, like, I think my parents were ahead. Like, they're so old school, but they were very ahead of the times. Like now, people are like, we just have one child. It's so expensive. We're being responsible. We waited, right? I think like my parents were like, dude, it's so expensive. We want to give her the best. And they did.
That's
like
good. College
fund, first gen college student, and didn't have to take out any loans. I didn't know about scholarships. So, but you know, I grew up, and then the Cultural Arts Center, I was just like always there hanging out. They got jaranas. They started a music class. I think I was like 13 or 14. And I just like didn't say anything. You know, because I was already going there, and I was like, you know, folklorico, and I didn't say anything. And then we had like a community event, and I was so scared. Oh my God, Mom, if you're watching, I'm sorry. She gets really upset when I talk about my childhood because she pulls that whole like George Lopez when his grandma's like, no, that never happened. So, but like I was so scared because they were really strict, you know, and I'm grateful now because a lot of my cousins are living a very different life than me. And if my parents hadn't been so strict, I'd probably be living that life.
Yeah.
So I started playing music like on the low, thinking like, you know, I never was like, I'm going to be a musician. No, like I really wanted to play music.
Yeah.
And I happened to be good at it because of the nature of this specific instrument. And then for like a year, they didn't know. And then they knew. And it actually went really well. Like I was surprised. I think it's because when I said I wanted to play music, my mom and dad were like, she's going to join a rock band, right? Or like whatever. And that's kind of how I got involved in music, right? And then I spent a lot of time in Mexico because I play son jarocho, which is like resistance music, right? Survived colonization, survived recolonization. And it you know, I think what's great about it is it tells this, I don't even want to say hidden, like they hid it. The story that was hidden from us of the roots of Mexico and the cultura. And I was like, what? This is crazy. It's like indigenous music mixed with like the Spanish colonizers, but like they brought enslaved Africans on the ships. What, did they just all disappear? No, they like the influences in food and music, even like the population. And so you know, my parents were like, you got to go to school. But they were also like, get married and have a kid. And I was all, oh my God. So I started going to school, right? And I eventually, because this music is like community music, like you can't, it's a lot like conjunto in that sense, that it was like a working people's music. It was like the music we celebrated with, or, mourned with, or we're just like in community with after probably 12 to 15 hour shifts. It's not written down, most of it. I mean, maybe it is now, but it's not really written down. A lot of it is passed on, whether it's like the Jimenez family, right? Yeah. Flaco, his brother, Santiago, the chief, and then they pass it down. Now there's great programs like the Conjunto Heritage Taller where they teach this music, but son jarocho is like that, right? Like there's no like son jarocho for dummies. And so I realized like this music doesn't exist without community and vice versa. And so everywhere I went, I just did what I was taught. Like, let's start a collective, free, always open to the public. And then I started, learning about other Chicano collectives from the 60s and other, people of color movements, and like, how did they do it without funding? How did the Black Panthers start WIC? Or how did the Young Lords steal a mammogram car, like truck, and like take it to the hood? And I'm like, dude, like in collective, right? So I would just start these collectives. I went to school in San Jose, and I started a collective, and then this cumbia band, this amazing salsa cumbia band named Lado Oriente was like, yo, let's add some son to our set. And I remember I wasn't old enough to get into the bars, and if I didn't get there early enough to sneak in the back, I was using my homegirl's ID. We looked nothing alike. It said she was like 5'7", and I'm only 5 feet tall.
No way.
Yeah, dude, maybe 5'1". With my boots, maybe like 5'3". But and I was like, 18, just like sneaking into these bars to play music. And I remember at the time I was like, whatever, right? And then I, moved to New York. I went to Hunter College to study sociology. And then I just did what I want to play music with people. And then I started a collective there. We had, an all-female band. I spent 9 years. I actually lived in Bed-Stuy for a little bit, right off Nostrand, the A train. And then I came here for grad school, and I was, because my parents were like, well, get married and have kids or do something. And I was,
so what's up with that? What's up with the pressure that Latino parents give the girls to have babies?
It is. And I remember, love you, Mom, but we're just going to tell the truth. I had like decent city jobs. Like, again, I was like, you can't be like a traditional folk musician or folk dancer and be like an artist. That's weird, right? So I like worked in politics. Like I worked for council members in New York. I worked for Congress people. I ran campaigns. Like, yeah, like really. And my mom was so proud. And I was like, I hate these jobs. Like they are sucking my soul away. And I worked for a lot of nonprofits doing like after school stuff, right? Like teaching dance. And in New York, there's like a really big market for that. They really care about cultura. I would visit like different public schools. In New York, everything is like PS 128. And it was super cool because I worked for this program that would send us for like 6 weeks to these different schools. And I got to do one in Chinatown. And so I would like teach Mexican cultura to kids who were like English language learners. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like I could do what I love, like, and get paid. This is crazy. And my mom was all, oh my God, you quit your jobs. And I was all happy. But then I graduated, right, with my bachelor's. Never let anyone tell you it's 4 years. Nah, I took 9.
Yeah, it's all good.
Because I had to work. Because like, who's going to pay for that? I couldn't take 5 classes a semester. I could take like 2. One semester, like life blew up. Money, institutionalized racism, like women, all that. And so I would, take a semester off. So my parents were just like, what are you going to do? What's next? And like, I was all, oh God, I was in my late 20s and I'm like, they want me to like get married. And so I just went to grad school. I was like, let's go to grad school,
there you go.
Right?
Stay in school.
Grad school. So in grad school, I realized like I was smarter. I started realizing like there's grant money, like there's free money to do cultural and artistic work. What? Because like when you're growing up in the hood, like I think my one goal was like get out, but come back and do good work. And I think for a long time, I thought that was like I had to be a lawyer or I had to be an educator. And yes, I am an educator now, but as I went through school and I started dancing more and playing more. And then I would get these like tours or like like I got to go to Mexico and I got like paid and everything got paid. And I played this huge festival that I had like heard of called Quimera, like with a band and it was Mexico, dude. That's like every brown kid's. And I started to realize like, love you, mom and dad, but like I did it. I got my degree. Yeah. There are other ways to be successful nowadays. So in grad school, I realized that like you had to, first of all, I knew nothing about grad school. Again, it was like, I'm sad to say, people spend like a whole year investigating grad school, right? Mine was like, dude, if I don't do something, they're going to be like, get married, have a kid. And I don't even have like a steady boyfriend. So like, whatever. So I just kind of, I looked at 3 grad schools. I looked at UCLA and I was like, dude, of course, like come home to Cali. But there's like, the competition is rowdy out there. There are so many amazing, talented, smart chicanas. And I was like, do I really want to go home and be like this close to my parents after not being that close for like 10 years? And also like, who can afford to live in California? I looked at ASU. They had a really cool trans-border program that I, could be cool. And then I went and visited and I was like, ew, I can't live here. I can't go to this school. Like, I need comunidad. When I was in New York, it's weird. Like, yes, there's a huge Mexican population, but they tend to call it Puebla York. A lot of them come from New York. Yeah. Eventually, I realized it's because, like, back in the 50s, like, these few families migrated there, and then they just started bringing, like, the whole pueblo. Mm-hmm. But New York is so big that, like, oh, I wanna go have coffee. You better get ready for that 2.5-hour train ride if everything goes right. And that's if y'all meet in the middle. And that's if the right. So it's just like, unless your community is your immediate neighborhood, it's a little bit hard to feel in community. Also, Mexicans are the minority in terms of Latinos there. Mm-hmm. And so like any other huge metropolis, they pick up cultura from like La República Dominicana, the Dominican Republic, or from Colombia or Venezuela. And so like I rarely heard conjunto. And
you probably weren't going to hear it out there.
Well, like the funny thing is I had a lot of jobs in New York, and one was I was a coat check girl, made a ton of money checking coats in New York, because you go to the club, it's 20 degrees and snowing, you got like this huge bubble coat, but it's hot in the club and you want to look good. Well, you got to put your coat somewhere. Pay $1 an item. Then they're all drunk at the end of the night and they tip rowdy. Like one night I made $1,000 and I was just like, what the beep? Like checking coats, and I would do homework. Like I would sit in the coat check room and just do homework. And I remember the first time, and probably one of the few times, I heard music that was like comunidad, casa. It was from the kitchen, and they were listening to Los Tigres del Norte. And I was all, oh my, it took me a second.
Took you a second.
To realize like, oh my goodness. So I really missed that like comunidad. And when I went to visit ASU, I was like, this ain't it. Like, and
then what was next?
Well, I visited UTSA.
There it is, folks. And that's how she got here.
Because I heard you didn't have to take the GREs.
Yeah, who wants to take the GRE if you don't have to?
Like I was more prepared. So when I get to grad school, I'm like, wait, you either have to take like a crazy 2-day test or write a thesis or do a special project. And the more I looked into it, I was like, dude, you can write about like anything. Like it never occurred to me that you could like get into the academy and like do what you love doing from the academy. Then I learned about all this, like they call it the other in anthropology, like all these white folks like studying our communities and like getting it all wrong and shit. And you're just like, dude, that is not. Then when I was like, yo, I'm gonna write about son. I'm gonna write about son, jarocho, and like the amazing ability it has to create community, but also like we've been colonized and recolonized. Like they took our names from us. My mother's name is Graciela. And then she got sent home with the note, like, your name is Gracie now. Uh-oh. Right? Like, I speak better Spanish than my mother because, like, you got hit, right? Yeah. Even here in Texas, like, Texas Rangers were lynching Mexicans and Mexican Americans at one point at a higher rate than anywhere else in the South. Like, all of these things are happening, and I'm just like, all the books are written by, like, Karen Jones. And I'm like, what the fuck does Karen Jones know about?
Hey, we can't curse on the show.
Beep.
I'm kidding
This
with
ain't
you.
cable.
I'm kidding with you.
But like, what do these people know about like the intricacies and like the like social norms of our community that are taught like generation? I just got super pissed. Good. So I was like, fuck that. I'm going to write like our stories and I'm going to like do it their way through whatever. And then I started like, you apply to conferences, right? And they put 4 people in an hour-long session and everybody gets like 20 minutes. And I was like, damn, it's like a lot of time. So I like brought my collective, we played some music, and then they each gave like a short testimonio and everybody was pissed. And I was like, what did I fucking do wrong? Then I realized most people just like write a paper and then they're like, hello, my name is Keli, and today the title of my paper is blah, blah. And then they just like read as fast as possible. Yeah. And I was like, oh. So I just started doing these like really like not illegal, but like people were like, what the fuck is she doing? Like no one, like what? Like you brought your whole community into this academic space that is supposed to be like privileged. And I was like, nah, dude, this is how they know they can do it too. And that their kids can do it. And that like all the other brown kids, like, why y'all gatekeeping? It's like, you know, what are y'all doing? We got lawyers, doctors, politicians. Like, what are y'all doing? We had a black president and y'all are still playing this game. Then I started that you can do workshops. And I was like, oh, what's this? Oh, for an hour, I could just like teach these people whatever. Started teaching song. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like I'm going to use this to get a master's degree. And I never, ever thought you could use cultura for that, right? I thought you had to, I don't know, like I said, education for a while. I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. And then I was like, oh God, I don't want to do that. And it's crazy because through my music, I've been an educator. I have played at marchas in Dili when we shut the roads down in Dili, because how dare y'all put our babies in cages and separate them from their parents and lose them in the system? Like, how dare y'all, right? And so, and I've realized through getting a degree in Chicano studies that was like always the goal. Yeah. On the picket lines of the UFW, there was Luis Valdez and Teatro Campesino. Because what better way to educate a community that oftentimes can't read than through music? Storytelling. Yeah, storytelling.
Absolutely. So Amzi, as you can see, Keli wears a lot of different hats and she's wearing a beautiful one tonight. Yes. If you can guess how much she paid for that, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. One of the things I always known you for that you talk about at your shows is social justice. And we are driven by social justice. As you can see, Keli breaking it down on a lot of different fronts, talking about resistance music and community and people power, the duality of that, us being in San Antonio, being a hub here at VodPod for black and brown voices, communities, people, to tell our stories, to break it down, right?
Tell them they don't know.
And to finally, show the world that we're not a subgroup of this country, right? We are the mainstream, right? We are those voices. Talk to me a little bit about what resonates with you with that, in terms of, we have this concept of duality, this biculturalism. Here we're on South Texas, but being black and brown, right? We study things from all different lenses, from sports to entertainment. We've talked about a lot of different things like that, just bouncing around different things. I remember when the Antonio Brown thing popped off, we were talking about just, men of color, right? And handling problems and whatnot, but rough. It's, what do you think, man? I mean, just in terms of, being a hub of this resistance, of social justice, of having that lens of funneling the work through what we do at on the podcast.
Yeah, man. This is great. First of all,
gracias. Thank you.
And I have a couple questions too. But to answer your question, I remember I had the opportunity to travel to Mexico for the first time as well, and I would hear about these different communities of color that were these different things of that nature, and I always remember the history of Texas itself. Like Mexico was the first to, abolish slavery. People were trying to get out of here and go to Mexico. So you found all of these little settlements and things of that nature. And people celebrating, things that we know here in the South called Juneteenth heavily in Mexico. Yeah. And you're like, whoa, what the fuck? Whoa, wow.
Well, but they don't want us to know that. Exactly. They go out of their way to pit all people of color against each other. Exactly. And then when we do badass shit, they're like, shh, don't tell them. then they're gonna rise to power.
You know, it's funny. It's a couple of things. I always feel like one of the main reasons is this misconception of like, dear God, if they get in power, they're gonna do the same thing they did to us. No, it's gonna. I always envision when I see, especially young people of color entering the political spectrum, the first thing I think is a more just society.
For real.
Like I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a more just society because they're not gonna go for the BS. You know what I'm saying? They
understand.
That's the hope. Yeah.
To me, it's almost like what we're experiencing right now is, for the lack of better words, like the rebellion manuscript of Star Wars. And essentially, you know, got the rebellion. They were the empire that they foots on the necks for hundreds and thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? And they just said, "Fuck it, man." It was the young leaders, you know what I mean, that were like, "Hey, we're not going for the bullshit anymore."
Because they often don't have anything to lose.
Exactly.
True.
Well, and I don't know. That maybe a little bit more nuts. I don't know. But one of the questions I have for you is. So what we have been experiencing for the last couple of years is this passing kind of situation, like what you see happening in Florida when on the political spectrum, like the Latin community there saying like, all right, cool. Some of these guys on this side, even though I'm not that, I can pass as this, so I'm gonna assimilate this, you know. It was something that we're experiencing in the South, and I know you said you were in campaigns, political, and was there any conflict, like with that?
So I think, you know, let's just say the word colorism. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like I think another big reason I thought, like, I'm gonna just plug I'm on the Food Network. Like, I got a whole web series of Dia de los Muertos, and I got them to say words like colonizers, decolonize. I made them use words like nishtamal, and then I used community people, like, fuck a chef. Fuck y'all. We're trying to create like this thing. But here's the kicker. I went out of my way to get people that looked like me, dark like me, dark eyes, dark hair, right? And I think a big, you know, in New York, it wasn't so bad. And in California, it's not so bad anymore. But in the red states, the Bible Belt, the South, colorism is rowdy. Even in Mexico, right? Like, the people on Univision don't look like me, y'all, right? And they don't look like Max. It's white passing, right? And it's so weird because, like, when you're little, that gets ingrained in you, right? Like, mija, salte del sol. Get out of the sun. You're going to get too dark. But at the same time, you're watching, like, white women go to tanning salons to get dark. So you're, like, very confused. And I definitely, it's very strange. First of all, like, I know when to be, like, very professional. Like, hello, my name is Keli. And then when I show up for the interview, people are like, what the fuck? Right? And my mother was very intentional in naming me Keli. Like, she understood. That's why I'm like, sometimes my parents, I'm like, how could y'all be so cerrados, like closed-minded, but at the same time,
they didn't know any better. They thought they were ahead of the curve. They thought they were setting us up for success.
They were, though. That's the crazy thing. Like, I am well aware that if my mom hadn't gone out of her way to take me to, like, the opera or the ballet when I was little, I probably wouldn't feel as comfortable as I do now. Don't get it twisted. My imposter syndrome is still like, they all know. You're not supposed to be here. But from a very young age, I realized that there were, like, other circles than mine. I think too often, you know, we stay in our barrio and we think that everybody speaks Spanish and, you know, everybody is down and brown and down for comunidad. And then you're like, oh, God, like, there's this culture shock. And I think one of the things that has made me successful in politics and things like that is, you know, there's money capital, but then there's cultural capital. You can always figure out how to get money, but cultural capital is, like, really difficult, right? Like, you got to read the right books and you have to know which fork. I usually just wait until other people start eating and then I'm like, all right, this one. But my parents would, like, well, not my dad, but my mom would, like, take me to the ballet or the opera or, like, growing up, there wasn't, like, social media and we didn't have cable and the TV was, like, in my parents' room, off limits. So I read a lot. Like, a lot. And there were no brown girl books. So I read shit like Jane Austen. and Emily Dickinson, because at least they were
Canterbury
girls.
Tales.
No, I did.
We know all about Beowulf.
Dude,
you know?
no, for real. So here's this like little brown girl from the hood that's super well read, but I'm like not doing so hot in school because like no one pays attention. And then I'm like not the right complexion, right? I'm not white passing or white Tina. There's like a whole filter now, right? Like there was a scan, like TikTok. Twitter came for TikTok when there was like a filter that made you look like Latina, but it was all whitewashed. And it's crazy because like, I don't even think I ever heard the word colorism until I was in grad school. And I was like, oh, fuck, I know exactly what this is.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel it. I felt it my whole life. I think the only person I ever saw that looked like me was Selena. And then they killed her. And I was all,
yeah.
don't like, they're going to kill you too, right? And so it has been extremely difficult, like to get to the answer. I have had to be like we all know this, brown and black people of color already got to be like way smarter, way more well prepared. And then if you add like a woman and then like an outspoken woman that like, no, y'all aren't going to speak over me just because you're boys. It gets really hard. And I feel like, in my head, like, oh, look, this person proved themselves. Awesome. But people often get angrier. Like when you're actually about it, now they're mad. Because like, what can they say now? You're about it. And let's just say this, I spent a lot of time in politics in New York, either alone or like with my very small team of other brown people. And this is back in the day when you were still going out with like paper and like, not like, now everything's on your cell phone. Like, and it was just so difficult. And even, I would walk into like an official city office as like, deputy chief of staff or the scheduler. And they would think that I was like a secretary passing off mail, which is totally inexcusable anyways. Like the world would not run without secretaries and our, blue collar workers.
Correct.
And then it happens in the academy. And I'm like, what the F, dude? Like, we're all educators, woke, and half of us are ethnic studies people. But like, it's this same perpetuation of like people with lighter skin, people that can pass, right? And I'm just like, man, that's crazy. And again, now I teach it in all my intro classes at Northwest Vista. We all get the same intro unit on identity. We watch The Black Grandma in the Closet because most of my kids are brown. We're in HSI. And now they got to learn about the third root that I didn't learn about, right? Why is it secret? Why do they keep it from us? What are they so afraid of? And so I've now every student coming out of, I teach the intro to Mexican American Studies and I teach Mexican American Studies Fine Arts. Both of these are general ed classes. Well, I teach them about identity, colorism, like in the first week, because I think it helps us like process our own trauma. Yeah. Like, why do I feel this way? Like, and even with my homegirls, right? As we get older and we start having these talks, and I try not to get too like, I've read the books, but I want them to understand, like, dude, like that shit was intentional. Like these systems are set up to perpetuate our failure, etc. Standardized tests are racist, blah, blah, blah. And now, right, as a professor, I really take it upon myself to teach these things because nobody taught me, and it would have changed everything. If as a freshman in college at 18, 17, somebody would have been like, yo, do you know what colorism is? I would have been like, or like, did you know that like black and brown folks did these amazing things with like nothing, no resources? I would have been like, what? The way I grew up would have been totally changed, right? And I think I that's what I try to do, like through Tallercito or even on stage with Piñata Protests, right? Like we went on tour with the Casualties. Every band was all boys, like all boys. And, then there was me, and I was just like, dude. And I would see a lot of the shows are all ages, and I would see these little girls just like, and then I remember baby Keli Rosa, and I'm like, dude, I wanted to play music too, and there was no one up there. So, when at the end of those shows, punk shows, little kids come up, and I'm like, what instrument do you play, baby girl? And then I look at their parents all. And then I'm like, well, what do you want to play? And they always have an answer. I think once some kid was like, I don't know. But usually they're like drums. They have an answer. And then I just look at their parents. Because I want change. Like, I think, and it's crazy because I used to think that like be a lawyer or be a politician. I have made such a huge impact through music, cultura, and the arts. It's crazy.
I believe that. And you do a lot of big things. And one of the things, this show always goes by very fast. We only have about 15 more minutes left of the show. And I want to get to your book because did you know she wrote a chapter? Is this a chapter?
It's a chapter. It's a compilation and I'm chapter 3.
So tell us what this is. Explain to our viewers what this is and who wrote it. Who wrote the rest of it?
So like everyone, not everyone, but like I was saying, you could write a thesis. I wrote a thesis. And I think the page limit was like 60 pages. For a dissertation, it's like 80. My thesis was like 130. But I did a whole ethnographic research project where like I interviewed my collective members and I was like, yeah, it's music, but let's talk about identity, right? They took that from us. We don't have a connection to Mexico. How can we use this music to connect? We talked about the transnational communities that we formed. We talked about how music can be a tool for social justice. And, I came up all official and I wrote a thesis. And then my thesis committee, my chair was Dr. Liliana Saldaña, her and her family, fundamental in the Chicano movement here. And Dr. Cervantes was on my committee, Next Step.
Shout out to them. Yeah. Shout out to them hard workers out of UTSA.
And they put together, it's like a reader, a compilation. It's called Entre el Sur y el Norte, right? Between the South and the North, decolonizing education through critical readings of Chicana, Chicanx, Chicano, Mexican, and indigenous music.
Let's take a look at this.
And they invited me to do a chapter. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh. And I am like so humbled and honored to be in this compilation. It's part of like a series from a big university. And like some of the folks who wrote in here are people that I referenced in my thesis. And, for not bad for like a first gen barrio girl whose dad picked grapes. Like, so I got to basically put a chapter where I kind of like took what I felt would be most valuable from my thesis and put it in there.
So is this only available at the school?
No, like you could get it on Amazon. And so it's crazy because all of this happened like before COVID and I was all excited and I had to sign a contract, but then COVID hit and like
kind of shook it up, right?
Everything. And I was so scared because like I didn't want to ask like, hey, what's going on? Right. And then we got an email that was like, we're still working on it, right? That was like late 2020 and then nothing. And I was like, oh no. And then I would like see the doctores out, but I was, again, like imposter syndrome's real. And I think I was afraid that if I asked and they were like, it was shelved, that I would just, right? At least if I didn't ask, there was still like the hope. And then like early this year, they were like, all right, time to like every finishing touch because it's coming out in June. And I was like, yay. And then June came and went. And then right before my birthday, I just got an email that was like, congratulations, the book is being released on Sunday. Here's a link. And it was like an Amazon link. And I was like, what? It is a little like, well, okay, it's like $45. You could get it like the Kindle version. That's a little expensive. I wanted it to be like $25. But when you compare that to the other texts that students are buying, it's not that bad.
Yeah, is it Audible as well or just?
Yeah. Oh, Audible, I don't know yet. Okay. But I know you can, like, I'm not going to lie. I bought all 3 versions. There's the hardcover that is very expensive, but like, it's a book.
It's worth it.
Right? And then this one is like 45 and then the Kindle version is 45. You can get it like I'm shamelessly gonna say, I asked Northwest Vista to buy it so that it's an ebook so that professors can use. But I mean, I think the coolest part was like, I bought one for my parents and I didn't tell them and it delivered on Amazon. And my old school Mexican parents were like, mija, we think that you accidentally, and I was like, Mom, just fucking open it.
Turn to page 45.
No, seriously. I was like, yo, just open it. And I think because my name isn't on the front, my parents were like, what is? And then I think that finally, and I was like, Mom, come on. Well, I sent that for my dad. I sent my mom, like you can gift the ebook. And she was just, dude, you try gifting an old Mexican senora. She had to download. She was just mad about everything. And I'm trying to surprise her like, senora, first gen, published, real book. My iPad has to be updated if I'm going to down. And after like an hour, seriously, after like an hour, she calls me, hi, Mika. And I'm just like, oh my God. So, some of my homegirls have gotten it. I think it's on back order now because I think we all were just like, oh my gosh. Oh, wow. And I think that's just a testament to like our community is hungry for this.
Sure.
They want by us, for us. And it was just an honor. Most of it isn't about me. It's about the talleristas. That's what we call the members of our collective, and giving their testimony. And, one thing that I did that was really cool, usually you have to use a pseudonym, right? Mm-hmm. I went out of my way to fight the International Review Board because we're out in the public. Everybody knows who we are. Why should I have to use a pseudonym? And I won. It's very rare. So it's even cooler that like local San Antonio artivistas, artists who use their art in activism, are in this book. And some of them were like undocumented, and now their kids are like, oh my gosh, my dad is in a book. And I had 120 people at my thesis defense. Did you know that they're open to the public? Yeah, no. I was like, that's weird. Like, so you get to do this thing and it's only for like 4 people. And then I read that it's like open to the public. And I was like, oh, y'all fucked up when you said that. Because I invited the whole barrio.
They all came.
Dude, they all came. And they had like snacks and chucherias. And that meant so fucking much to me. Because why y'all gatekeeping? Why is this a fucking secret? Like, why didn't we know? Like, why? I'm in fucking grad school and I didn't know that, right? And so when I looked out, I saw my whole community, little girls that are now like, I can do anything. Right. And older senoras that are like, look at what my work did, right? And that meant everything to me. And then, these people that I spoke about in my thesis, their kids are there. And I left a bunch of shit in Spanish. Figure it out. We have to.
I'm sure they were angry. Let me ask you too. You seem to have a lot of energy for this stuff, purpose, passion. Where do you get that energy from?
Dude, I everybody asks me that. And up until, I did in like 5 days in a row, I did all the setup for Luminaria, ran the festival. Then I did the Thanksgiving in the Barrio because I'm a board member of the Cesar E. Chavez Legacy and Educational Foundation. So I did that with 75 volunteers. We broke our own record in 38 minutes. We packed over 2,000 items of food into 400 bags, which we gave to West Side families on Monday. So then I did that on Monday, but everybody learns and grows. And Monday was a really bad day to do that for the working poor. So we had 100 bags left over. So on Tuesday, I packed them bags because I'd be damned if them working class folks aren't going to get it. So I packed them bags in my car and I made Alvaro drive the piñata protest van all around the west and south side while we handed out those. And when people are like, where do you get the energy? I'm like, isn't it like normal? And I think that like, dude, it's going to sound so corny, but like I am living my ancestors' wildest dreams. Like my grandfather died from exposure to pesticides in the fields that gave him cancer. My dad has health issues. My Uncle Joe came back from Vietnam, PTSD, Agent Orange, like health issues, right? Yeah. And I just am like, how can I not? Like, how can you not want to just like be if you know what, if it was no one when I was growing up and now everybody's all light, like fuck that, then it'll be me. And if I gotta stay up 4 days and I'll sleep when I'm dead, or I'll sleep like when everyone else is, and Ernest, the board chairman, is always like, aren't we putting too much work on you? And I'm like, I don't know what y'all do after 6 because you got like kids and families and houses, but like I have set up my life this way on purpose to be of service. Like I don't have kids. I don't have, I don't own a home, and these material things don't matter to me because I am only here for a short period of time. The fuck do I need a house for if I don't got kids and I spend half my time touring? And so for me, I just feel like it's like my responsibility. Like how can I look the senoras in the eye if I'm not like working hard all the time? How can I celebrate going to Germany representing San Antonio with Tex-Mex cultura if I'm not giving back? Because I wouldn't have had that opportunity if the working class people didn't create that music, right? Like, how can I not include young girls in a documentary about Emma Tenayuca and then not go out of my way to continue that work? It just feels... Also, I'm not gonna lie, like in grad school, I was angry. How dare they? How dare they not tell us what Texas Rangers did and we got a fucking baseball team named after them? How dare they not tell us that like Emma Tenayuca was run out of the city by a mob that wanted to lynch her led by the KKK? Fuck y'all. Y'all ain't gonna tell it. We will. And we know how to make documentaries and we're musicians.
I hope so.
Look at all these young black and brown people with these amazing skills that just want to do the work. And I'm just like, either get the fuck out of the way or my train is just going to roll over you. And it's a heavy train because I got the whole fucking community with me. And I'm tired. Why does all of the grant money for individual artists go to white artists that are relatively well off because they know how to write a grant? Fuck that.
You're going to learn how to write some grants.
Oh, dude, we took 7% of the individual artist funding and 3 of those grants went to punk musicians. I'm tired. And if I've been gifted that gift, you damn right I'm going to help Domésticas Unidas close out the grant that someone else didn't. Like, again, I don't know what everyone else, well, I mean, I don't know. I don't have kids. I'm sure that there is homework time and whatever, but like, I also know that I call them the Netflixers. Like they go to their 9 to 5 and then they pick up food and then they sit on the couch. Like I don't even have a TV. I don't have time for that. What I have time for is...
We know what to get you for Christmas then.
I don't even know where we would put it. But like what I am invested in is using anything at my disposal to just push my community forward. Artists, educators, like even when I walked up in here, I was like, oh, hi, do you want to write a grant? Like, what are y'all doing? And crabs in the bucket. They love to say that like black and brown, especially women, we're just like pulling each other down. Fuck that. Like stand on my back. I'll push you up because I stood on how many other backs. And I forget what they call it. There's like a fancy term, like there's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
We don't got to fight. There's not like an unlimited amount of light. You don't lose anything by lighting another vela. Like your light isn't any less,
True.
right? And so I think, I don't know. I do rest when I'm tired.
Good.
But I also...
rest is important too.
It is. I was just telling you, I'm trying to rest, but it's been very difficult for me because it has been a crazy year and I don't know how to just like, all right. I'll be like, oh, we should do this. Oh, I wonder if so-and-so wants to do a film festival. Like, hey, so-and-so. And so I'm really working on like resting, which is, I think also, I'm so blessed because growing up again, right. I just thought there was like a limit and I'm all, what? I fucking went to Germany and I got paid? What? Like, and then I got to like, I won a fucking Tejano Music Award for a music video featuring Crucito, Jesse Borrego. We all grew up watching that movie. He was our favorite because he died, right? And it like wasn't fair in the movie. And I think sometimes I just have to like take a moment and be like, dude, it's real. It's real. And I think I feel it's so weird because I'm like, dude, what? But I'm also just like, fuck yeah. Look at this brown girl from the hood inspiring other brown girls to just know like, yo, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You really can. And I wish I'd realized that earlier.
So, but you still got a long ways to go as well. You're doing great work. You've done great work. You're going to continue to do great work as well. I'm inspired to hear you talking about working with other people, other women, the people in the academy, people in the community, so on and so forth. And it's interesting because, I got to know you through seeing you on all these different events, right? At whether it was a festival, whether it was a march, whether it was a town hall meeting, you were involved, so, shout out to you for doing all this work. You got all these awards you brought. Yeah. What else did you bring? Is there something here under the table?
This award, it like doesn't matter to me, right? I didn't even know there was an Alamo Arts Theater. It's an ATAC. So like Alamo Theaters Council, whatever. But it's, these theater awards that, secret judges go to.
I want to host that show next year. Whoever's in charge of it, call me.
They never, ever nominate the brown shows. And when they do, I was in Bless Me Ultima, amazing show at a white theater. Oh, they fucking lost the ballots or whatever. Oh, wow. No, ATAC is like an individual. It's like the Alamo Theaters.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Whatever, Arts Council. So they send like secret judges and then you like vote and that's how you win in ATAC, right? And they usually go to like established theaters like the Classic. Well, like a while ago, I did Bless Me Ultima by Sacred Chicano playwright. And they lost the ballots. So like that show that the classic had to extend for 2 weeks because we fucking sold out every night for a month. We never got nominated. And I remember being like, fuck that shit. I'm not surprised. But this year, every single Teatro Audaz show was nominated and won some shit. And again, I'm like, whatever. I didn't even want to go. But I went like super Mexicana in this like gorgeous Chiapas dress for my childhood. And I like took up space and I won this award for Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy. But I think what I'm really proud of is that it was like an all Latino Chicano cast, except for like the 2 white actors we needed because they're white in the play. But it was a play called Man of the Flesh, written by Octavio Solis, this like great Chicano playwright. And it was just such
out of Houston, right?
I think he lives in California now, but he did like, I think he went to school in Houston. So he did like a lot of his work there. But it was just such an honor to like, they never even nominate our shows. And then we swept like 24 awards, right? And people looked upset. People were like, oh, and I was like, oh, welcome to our world, right? And so
I'm so sorry. Somebody in the chat wanted to know what the book was again.
Hold that up.
Sorry, it was Elsa.
It's Entre el Sur y el Norte, Decolonizing Education Through Critical Readings. You know what? They're going to post it. I'm sure they'll
We're going to post it. Don't worry. For everybody that wants to see, we're going to make sure
Yeah.
that you find out exactly where to purchase this book from.
It's at all
of the
booksellers.
chapters. They're going to be, it's great. We know the editors. We know
Most of the authors,
big fans of the
too.
show. Exactly. Edis, I see Edis is on here.
Yeah.
So shout out to all these
Like
peeps.
I said, I'm just so on. Like when I saw like I didn't really know who else was in it until I got the email that was like, surprise, the book is out. Here's the link. And when I saw who was on that email, I was like, holy shit. Like I used some of these people's work in my thesis. And I just felt like, you know, it's also like the last checkmark box in the academy. Well, are you published?
And now you can say you are.
I am now.
There
and
you go.
You know, I again, it's like such an honor. And, you know, I always say to like, you know, the people that I work with, I always say, mis logros son tus logros y los tuyos los míos, right? Like my wins are your wins and your wins are my wins. And like, it's funny, when I won the Tejano Music Award, I texted my homegirls like, we just won. So I just try to be really intentional, like with my language, like with what I teach. I'm surprised that they know what I teach. They use my modules to train the new online teachers, right? But even like with the Food Network, I was like, dude, they're not going to put it up.
That was really well done.
Thank you.
I need to see that.
Yeah, we're going to pull it up.
I know we have a couple more.
We only got a few more minutes, man. So give us what you got, Amzi.
Quick question in closing. On a spectrum, like perspective, right? So I know we have big orgs, big corporations. I don't know how to really phrase this. Maybe trying to sprinkle in representations of, you know,
the diversity hire,
the diversities and stuff like that.
Or that one time Disney tried to trademark Dia de los Muertos like 13 times in a row and lost, and then a few years later got Coco.
Yeah, right. You know, so what? As a point of attack, right? So it seems, which is more important, right, as far as the representation piece, like continuing work as such, more focused on the community, or maybe orgs that we believe maybe practice clean capitalism, like having them do these
both.
Okay, so both.
Yeah, I totally get your question, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do? Do we invest all of our time in the community from the ground up, or do we go to these, like you were saying, you know, orgs or politicians that we hope are going to do the right thing? Both, and a third one. First, yes, I think it's, again, now these little brown girls are going to question these Dia de los Muertos Barbies, and my students are going to be like, wait a minute, this colorism shit going on, right? They're going to start to ask these questions, and they're the ones that they're the consumers, like, right? Also, yes, hold nonprofits accountable. You are a fucking nonprofit. You're not, you know, Apple or Walmart. You are a nonprofit. And here alone in the city, there's like 8 or 9 culturally specific nonprofits, and y'all get funded extra. And I want to shout them out because they are doing the work, and they've been doing the work. And because of those fundamental Chicano nonprofits, here I am. But lastly, go for that grant money. It's out there.
Get the grant money.
But they're all fucking taking it, right? Everyone else is taking it. Like, I am a grant writer. I barter with artists.
That's
I
right.
train you how to write a grant. Ask around. Like, I don't want money. What, you printmaker? You photographer? Take my fucking picture. Give me a print to put in my house. I don't care. If you're a well-off artist, fine. Like, give me what you think, whatever. But most importantly, like, I want to teach you how to write a grant. Right. Because that's where the money is. I pro bono my services as a grant writer to like several smaller nonprofits in town, because grant writing, first of all, extremely rare that people do it. People that speak Spanish, even rarer. And people that are like down and brown, and it has nothing to do with how much are you going to pay me, because grant writers and development directors often get paid the most. For me, it's about like, of course you deserve that money. You don't want to give me a grant? Fine, we'll figure it out, Vanessa Guillen mural. Like, and you could scan a QR code, and now every teacher has access to an entire curriculum on Vanessa Guillen and what happened, violence in the military, Chicano muralism, and what this whole mural means, the beautiful brown Chicana women who headed that mural, and a bunch of QR codes that go to like playlists, because I'm not fucking around.
There you go.
I'm so sorry. My bad.
Go ahead. Get the last question.
The last. So 2 things. One of the audience members was inquiring about the Food Network thing and maybe how they can look at it.
We're going to give them a link to the Food Network.
There's a link.
There's
a link to the Food Network.
If you just Google Dia de los Muertos Food Network menu, it's the first thing that pops up.
Cool.
So 60 seconds, the last 60 seconds are yours. Keli, we appreciate you coming on the show. Amzi, I told you before, I couldn't interview her alone, so I had to call for backup. Amzi, I appreciate you. If you're doing the San Pluto Show, make sure you following along tonight, 8:30 Central at VodPod. Keli, it's always a pleasure, as always. Appreciate you coming on. You look fabulous with your hat and the boots, folks. I don't know if you can see the boots.
Know.
Give us your 60 seconds or less final pitch.
Sure.
And that's it.
I just want to fucking say that if you're able to vote and you fucking didn't vote in Texas, like, fuck you. I don't give a shit.
Can you get any more? Can you get any more? Tell us how you feel.
Because like women are under attack, Black and brown people are under attack, and look what happened the last 2 years. Like, y'all better buckle down for the next 4. I would also like to say, go to school, stay in school. Like, even if you want to be an artist like me, at the very least. Sorry, everyone. If you have a bachelor's, you could be a substitute teacher. Shit pays like $125.
It went up, yeah.
Nobody tells you that. And you get to interact with kids, man. Like, you get to talk to youth about your art. And lastly, if you are not fucking giving back in some way, shape, or form, like, fuck you too. Like, it could be $5. We were $1,000 short for 400 families in Thanksgiving in the barrio. And because I started pushing that link and I was like, $5, we have like $5,000 in the bank for next year. Like, if you can't do that, be of service. Volunteer, mentor somebody, show up for the marchas, like be there for your community, because if you don't, number one, we're just, what are we gonna like cease to exist? But number two, like I said, some white person will come, recruiter or whatever, and like fuck your shit up, and they're gonna get it wrong. And like, if I could do it, if this little brown girl from the barrio first gen could do it, fucking anyone can do it. Just work hard.
There you go, folks. Tonight's show brought to you by the word fuck. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week here at VodPod Media. Thank you so much, folks. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Woo!
So we add the tomatoes now,
Now
whole,
we're adding
just
the-
like this.
Yes. This is a tomatillo. Take
So I
off
just
the husk.
Take this husk off, right?
Yes.
So with the same pot,
You want to be able to see those colors change
so
in
the
the
skin
tomato.
kind of gets like orange, like a darker orange.
Yes. Our ritual was that on Dia de los Muertos, you went to the cemetery early in the morning, and it was a day for the family to go out to the cemetery, clean the lapidary stone. All the flower vendors line up for miles. This is the last of our tomatoes.
And the last tomatillo. And now what do we do with all this yumminess?
You're gonna help me blend all this yumminess. You don't want a lot of the liquid from here going into there. And now you're gonna add
Okay.
those two.